Writing drum parts can be one of the more difficult tasks in any notation software, especially if you're not a drummer yourself. Hi, I'm Katie from Midnight Music, and in this video we're going to look at how to create a basic drum beat in MuseScore and some best practices when it comes to what to include in your score so that your drummer can see what to play at a glance. This tutorial is an intentionally detailed walkthrough of the basics, so if you want to cut to the chase and skip ahead to a specific section, there are timestamps to help you do that. Let's get started. Open MuseScore and start a new score. From the Common Instruments group, click on Percussion Unpitched and then double-click on Drum Kit Common to add it to the list of instruments in your score. Click Next and give your score a title and set the time signature and tempo. Then click Done. When you select the first measure to start writing your drum part, the percussion panel will open. You might find that when it opens, it covers part of your score, especially if you're on a laptop. You can resize it or reposition it altogether by grabbing the top of the panel and moving it around. You can have it floating while you work, or you can dock it at the top or at the bottom of your screen. Once you deselect the drum kit stave, the panel will close automatically. But if you want it to stay open while you work, head to MuseScore Studio Preferences on Mac or Edit Preferences on Windows and select Percussion. Note that there are options here for how you would like the percussion panel to be triggered. Uncheck this Close the Panel Automatically box if you want to switch that option off, and click OK. The percussion panel has two modes: the default write mode, which will enter notes into your score once you click on a pad, and the preview mode, which lets you hear what each option sounds like without entering any notes into your score. It's also useful to know that the layout menu lets you switch between pad names or the notation preview. There is an option here to select the number of pads shown horizontally, and you can also use the Edit Layout option to customize further what you see in the percussion panel. This Customize Kit window gives you complete control over the notation for each instrument in the kit, including note head type, position on the stave, and the stem direction if you don't like the default settings. The most basic rock beat uses the closed hi-hat, the snare drum and the bass drum, and once you know how to create this, you can use it as the basis for lots of other more interesting drum patterns. So let's create this pattern in MuseScore, starting with the bass drum. Select the first measure and then press A on your computer keyboard to enter the first bass drum note. Each drum pad has a keyboard shortcut which is shown on the left corner. You could click on the drum pad with your mouse instead, but if you want to work quickly, it's good to get used to using the keyboard shortcuts. I like to write notes into my score without picking up the mouse where possible, so in order to tell MuseScore that I want to keep the quarter rest that's showing on the next beat, I'll press 0 on my computer keyboard. The cursor will move across to beat 3, and I can press A to enter the next bass drum note, followed by 0 to enter the rest. We've finished with the bass drum for now, so we'll press the escape key twice, once to get out of note entry mode, and the second time to deselect everything in the score. Some people prefer to simplify the notation and get rid of these two quarter note rests, so you can do that by selecting the rest and pressing V, which toggles the visibility of an element in your score. Once the rest is hidden, it won't print out, but it still exists in the score if you later want to add a note in that position. While you're working on the score, you can choose to hide the invisible objects by going to Properties and clicking on Invisible. Anytime you want to see the invisible objects, come back here and turn them on again. A quick note about the escape key. It's a good idea to get used to pressing escape twice in MuseScore before you move on to your next step. If you forget, you'll find yourself accidentally adding notes into your score because you'll still be in note entry mode. If you do add notes by accident, or if you make some other kind of mistake, just use the undo shortcut Ctrl-Z or Command-Z on Mac to undo your last action, or select the element you accidentally added and press Delete. Note that MuseScore automatically enters the bass drum in voice 2 on the stave, which is green, and it has stems pointing down. This is in keeping with one drum notation convention of notating the parts of the kit played by the feet with stems pointing down. When we enter the hi-hat and snare in the next step, they'll both appear in voice 1 on the stave, which is blue, and they'll have their stems pointing up because they are parts of the kit that are played by the hands. If you do want to change this setup and have all the parts in voice 1 with the stems pointing up, you can go to Customize Kit, select bass drum in the list on the left, and change the default voice to 1 and stem direction to up. For this tutorial, however, we'll be sticking with the default 2-voice approach. Now we'll enter the hi-hat and snare parts. Click on the voice 1 rest in the first measure to get started. If you don't click on the rest specifically and just select the measure like this, you will mess up the bass part that you've already entered. If you did that, press Escape and then click on the rest. Next, select the rhythmic value you want for the hi-hat by pressing the relevant number on your computer keyboard. In MuseScore, number 5 is quarter note, 4 is 8th note, and 3 is 16th note. I want 8th note, so I'll press 4 and then press the letter C to enter the hi-hat. I'll press C again for the next note and once more for the next note. To add the snare on this current beat, hold the Shift key down and press B, which is the snare drum shortcut. Holding Shift down while you enter the snare drum note adds the sound to the hi-hat rather than overwriting it. Let's finish off this measure. Press C, then C, C again, and C again, Shift B for the snare, and C. Press Escape twice to finish it off. To hear the drum pattern that you've created, click on Rewind here, and then press the play button. You can also use the spacebar to start and stop playback. Before we do anything else, let's save the score. Press Ctrl S or Command S, and then choose whether you want to save your score to the cloud or locally on your computer. I'm going to choose the computer option for now. I'll give the file a name and choose where to save it. The good thing about drum patterns is that they are very repetitive, so we're just going to enter this one measure. Now, although it's possible to copy and paste this measure, please resist the temptation to fill the page with the same pattern because no drummer wants to see that in a score. In a moment, I'll show you the better approach for drum parts, but if you do need to copy the pattern for just 1 or 2 measures, here are 3 different ways. The first is to use the standard copy and paste method. Select the measure, press Ctrl C or Command C on Mac, select the destination measure, and then press Ctrl V or Command V to paste. The second way is to select the measure and then press the letter R on your computer keyboard. The pattern will be copied into the following measure. The third option is to select the measure and then hold down Option on Mac or Alt on PC and click where you want the pattern to go. Here are 2 better options for filling out your drum part which your drummer will appreciate. I'll show you what they look like first and then show you how to create them in MuseScore. Option 1 is to use the Repeat Last Measure sign. Instead of copying and pasting your drum pattern lots of times, you can write out the pattern in full once at the start of a section and then use this Repeat Last Measure symbol in the measures that follow. This is a shorthand way of telling the drummer to play that pattern over and over. Option 2 is to use slash notation. Another option for when you want the drummer to continue the groove, but you don't need them to play precisely what was notated, is to use slash notation to fill in the measures instead. This tells the drummer to keep playing the same pattern, but also gives them permission to vary it a little in keeping with the style until they see a change in the score. Either of these options are much easier for the drummer to read at a glance rather than seeing an entire page of fully notated drum pattern measures. Let's run through how to create each of these in MuseScore. Let's look at the Repeat Last Measure sign first. Make sure nothing is selected by pressing Escape a couple of times and then go to Palettes and look for Repeats and Jumps. Select the second measure and then click on the Repeat Last Measure sign in the palette to add it to your score. Once you have this first one in your score, you can copy and paste it using one of the two methods mentioned earlier. I'll select it and press R a few times to repeat it in the following measures. MuseScore will even continue to play the drum pattern throughout these measures. By the way, if you have a drum pattern that is 2 bars in length, you can use the 2-bar repeat sign. You can find this in the Repeats and Jumps palette under the More button. There's also one for 4-bar patterns. If you think you'll be using this 2-bar repeat sign a lot, you can drag it next to the other one for easy access. The second option is to use slash notation. Click on the second measure, hold down Shift, and click on measure 8 to select all the measures in between. Next, go to Tools, Fill with Slashes, and then press Escape. You can add text above the start of the slashes to confirm that you want the drummer to keep going. Select the measure and in the text palette, click on Staff Text. You can also use the shortcut Ctrl-T or Command-T to add staff text. Double-click to edit the text, turn on italics, and type either sim for simile or CONT for continued or a variation. The only drawback with slash notation is that it doesn't play back. Those bars will be silent when you play your score. Here's an optional workaround for that. Press Escape so that you have nothing selected. Press I to open the Instruments panel. Go to Percussion Unpitched and double-click on Drum Kit Common to add a second drum stave to your score. Click OK. This drum stave won't show when we're done, but for now you'll see both of them. Now copy the rhythm from measure 1 in the first drum part using Ctrl-C or Command-C and then paste it into the new drum part in measure 2. Press R to copy and paste it into all of the measures that have slash notation in the first drum part. We're going to hide this stave but allow it to still play back. Go to the Layout panel, click on the drop-down arrow next to Drum 2 and then click on this eye next to Percussion. If you click on this other eye here next to Drum Kit 2, it won't work. It will make the second drum kit totally silent, so make sure to click on this one instead. Now you have a score which only shows your original drum part, but it has the sound of the second drum part playing during the slash notation. One of the best things about drum fills is that you don't actually have to notate them in full. Unless you want something very specific or you're transcribing a recording note for note, most drummers are happy to see an indication of where the fill needs to go and how long it should be, and that's about it. This gives the drummer permission to improvise an appropriate fill that's in keeping with the style of the song. To add this marking into the score, select the measure where you'd like the drum fill to happen, go to the text palette and click on this staff text option which has a bracket after it. Next we'll open the Properties panel and adjust the appearance of the line and the hook. In this example, I'll change the end hook to this straight option and choose the dashed line style. Next, click on the text tab here, delete the default text and write fill or big fill or whatever you'd like it to say. Click back on the score to see the changes. If you do want to notate a drum fill because you want to hear it play back in your score, here's something simple you can start with. Drum fills often occur at the end of a phrase or section, and if you're not a drummer, it can be difficult to know what to write for the fill. One tip is to look for inspiration on YouTube. This video is from the Online Drummer channel, and it's a good example which shows 12 simple drum fills with notation, and it lets you hear what each one sounds like. I'll include a link to the video in the description below. I'm going to add the second drum fill, which is shown here, into my score. Here are the keystrokes I'm using to enter this measure. Select the measure first, press number 3 to choose 16th notes, then on your computer keyboard press B, G, H and B. Press 4 to change to 8th note and press 0 to write the rest into the bar. We could continue to add these notes one by one, but it's possible to copy and paste what we have instead, since the same group of 4 notes appears 3 times. Press Escape twice. Click on the first note in the group of 4, hold down Shift and click on the 4th note. Press Ctrl+C to copy. Select the second 8th rest here, don't click on the first one by accident, and then press Ctrl+V or Command+V to paste. It looks a little different because the stems are grouped differently, but the way it appears here is correct and will sound the same as the first group. Next, click on the quarter note rest and paste again to finish the measure. Press Escape when you're done. Here's what this sounds like with a couple of bars lead in. One way to make a standard drum beat more interesting is to add accents and the occasional open hi-hat. To add an accent, select the note, go to Palettes, open the Articulations palette, and click on the Accent Above option. MuseScore will even perform the accents for you. Here I've isolated the hi-hat so that you can hear the difference. Another option is to add an occasional open hi-hat sound. These work really well at the end of a measure or just before one of the main beats. To add an open hi-hat, select the note or rest where you want the open hi-hat sound and press D to change the closed hi-hat to an open hi-hat. Press Escape when you're done. Here are 2 examples. And here's an example of a pattern with both accents and open hi-hats. Courtesy numbers like these are often added above the stave, and they help the drummer keep track of how many times they need to play the pattern. The number shown includes the measure with the original pattern in it. MuseScore does have a way to add these automatically, but right now you can only add them to the measures with the repeat last measure signs, not to the slash notation bars, and there isn't much control over how they appear. If you do want to add these automatic numbers, go to Format, Style, and select Repeats in the list on the left. Check the box next to Number Consecutive Measure Repeats, choose the frequency, and choose whether to include parentheses. Then click OK. I'm not a huge fan of the font and size of these automatic numbers, and if you select one and open the Properties panel, you won't find any option to change those parameters like you can on many other text objects in MuseScore. They also don't seem to appear above the 2-bar repeat signs in your score, and as mentioned earlier, not above the slash notation bars. And lastly, once you turn these on, they are on for the entire score and for every instrument, which might be okay in some instances, but not useful in other scenarios. An alternative is to enter the numbers manually using staff text. Select the measure, type Ctrl+T or Command+T on Mac, and then type the number with or without parentheses. If you do it in this way, you have complete control over the font, style, and size in the Properties panel. There are a couple of drawbacks to this method though. The first is that the text will be positioned at the left edge of the measure, and you'll need to move it with your arrow keys or drag it if you want it in the centre. If you change your score formatting after doing this, you'll probably need to adjust the position of the numbers again later on. The second thing is that you'll need to be extra careful and double check that your counting is accurate. It's good practice to lay out your drum part with the measures spread out and formatted in such a way that it's easy to see where the different song sections start and end. When formatting your score, you'll need to use your best judgment with the style of music that you're working on and how dense the notation is, and so on. In this example, I would probably choose to end the first system with either the 4th measure or the eighth measure. I'll go with the eighth measure for now. To format the score manually, select the measure that you want at the end of the line and then press Enter or Return. This adds a system break into the score and it pushes the rest of the bars down to the next line. The sign here indicates that a system break has been added to the score and it won't show when you print. You can hide or show these formatting marks while you work by going to Properties and clicking the eye next to Formatting. We'll add another system break here at the end of measure 16. Select the measure and then press Enter or Return. Adding a system break here works well because it means that the next section is at the start of a new system, which is ideal, and it's easier for the drummer to spot quickly while playing. If you want to lay out your score with a uniform number of measures on every system, a formatting style that's standard with lead sheets and jazz charts, you can have MuseScore do this for you automatically. Go to Format, Measures per System, and select a number here. You'll usually choose a multiple of 4, but there are exceptions to this rule, so choose what works best for your score. Click OK to apply the change. At the end of a section, such as the end of a chorus or verse, you'll want to add a double bar line. Select the measure at the end of the section, and in the bar lines palette, choose double bar line. At the start of a new section, it's best to notate the drum pattern in full again so that the drummer is clear on what they need to play. That's also necessary if the pattern changes like it does in my example. To finish off, we'll label the sections in the score, which is a great way to make your drummer happy. You can use stave text to create these, select the measure, and then press Ctrl-T or Command-T. Type the label and then customize it using the options in the context menu. You can also add a frame around the text and customize the way it looks using these settings. You can edit the text later by double-clicking on it or by selecting it and adjusting the settings on the Properties tab. After you've created the first one, copy and paste it to the other locations in your score and then simply edit the text. And that's it. I hope you found this video useful and you feel more confident about creating drum parts in MuseScore. Don't forget to like this video and click on subscribe so that you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching.